they have to do in opening statements today is just convince the jurors that R. Kelly is not the monster that the public has come to think that he is. The government, I expect, is going to have a very detailed opening. They're going to present all sorts of stories that these women they suppose are going to tell, they allege are going to tell. But then what the defense has to do is they have to humanize R. Kelly. They have to tell the jurors how this is someone who started out singing in subways and really as a celebrity, he just sort of lived his life and made his music. What people are going to find out is that the sort of the moral view that we all have and kind of the Me Too movement has changed the way we looked at things. But in the moment things were happening, we didn't look at them that way and they weren't illegal.
So is the argument going to be that these women are lying or that what the women are alleging may be disagreeable and true, but it's not a crime?
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of all of that. I think that some of the women are just out and out lying. I think that some of the women are exaggerating. I think that some of the women are perhaps telling the truth about what happened, but it's just not a crime. What the government has done here is they've used the RICO statute, which really is intended to prosecute gangs and mobsters, and they're trying to prosecute an individual for a bunch of acts where the statute of limitations has expired or they were minor acts and they've sort of blown them out of proportion by using this RICO law. In my opinion, it's just a complete perversion of the intent of the RICO law.
So when you talk about sweeping up these minor acts into the bigger crime under the RICO law, what are you considering to be a minor act? What would the defense be willing to concede as true to try to get R. Kelly off in this case?
Well, I think the one that everyone's heard about the most is an allegation that he gave people herpes, which actually is not what the law says. The New York prosecutors are using a New York state law, and that's the only reason the case is actually in New York. That's how they get what we call venue, and they're using that misdemeanor law that no one's ever been prosecuted against to try and get a foothold in New York on a felony case. When a prosecutor has to get truly creative, as they have in this case, then that's probably not what the law was intended to punish or prohibit.
What do you say, Steve, to people that say, listen, there have been rumors for years about R. Kelly abusing women and certainly young girls. What do you say when you say the defense has to humanize him or even show that R. Kelly is a victim? How can they do that when so many of these women and young girls are telling the same stories who have no ties to each other? They can't all be lying, can they?
Well, and everyone, in a criminal case, people don't all have to be lying for a defendant to prevail in a criminal case. What's abuse, Gail? That's really what this comes down to. So you've got different categories of offenses here. You've got alleged minor victims, some of which I think you're going to find out lied about their age, their families lied about their age, and they really tried to capitalize on R. Kelly and extort him for money. And then you've got other things which they've alleged, like he wanted people to call him daddy. Now, how is that any different from me saying, I want to be called honey or sweetheart? Maybe it's a different word, but it's still the same concept. So
Steve, there's such a difference between being called daddy and being called sweetheart and honey in the context that these girls were saying. But they were kept locked in rooms.
These are grown, Gail, these are grown, no, these are not kept locked in rooms. These are grown women, for the most part, who made a choice to be with an individual who was a celebrity. When they talk about being in a locked room, they would go to the studio, they would be told, wait in this room, someone will come and get you. There's no chains, there's no hooks in the floor like we supposedly heard about in that so-called documentary. There's none of that. If I go to visit somebody at a police station, I get put in a room and told I can't leave the room. If you go to certain places, you get told to wait in the room. These women waited sometimes 3, 4, 5 hours while he was recording music, but that's not being locked in a room forever and held days on end, like you see in some of these sex slave kind of cases.
Yeah,
These were not
they have a
sex
different
slaves
version,
by any
Steve, to your
stretch.
characterization.
Yeah, they do.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
why we have trials.
Yeah.
That's why we
I
have
hear you.
trials. That's why we have cross-examination, and that's why we should all keep an open mind until the end.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying mental abuse, if that's what it is, isn't a crime.
Well, mental abuse isn't a crime. That's absolutely correct. So what's happened here is we've got the Me Too movement, and so we look at something and we say, well, this was abuse. But is it against the law? That's really what you have to do, and that's what they have to do in opening statement today, is get that across to the jurors that there's a difference between what's morally incorrect or Me Too incorrect and what's legally incorrect.
Steve, you were there that day we did the interview with R. Kelly, and I'm curious about your characterization of that. And the reason why I'm asking you specifically is because later R. Kelly said to me, or sent word to me, that he was thanking me for giving him the platform to express himself because we got to see, he says, his passion and his pain. Do you think that interview hurt or helped him?
I think to some people it helped and to some people it hurt. If R. Kelly had sat there with you perfectly stoic, everyone would have said he doesn't feel bad about anything. He's got no emotion. He's got no feeling. He got very upset during that interview. That was very real. That was how he felt. That is how I feel, that he's being taken advantage of here. The problem is, no matter what the man does, people are going to criticize. But all that matters, Gail, and you know this, is what those 12 people in the courtroom
You're
think
right.
in some 3 or 4 weeks from now.
All right.